we have started the recording, so just let everyone know of that. And I will pass it off to Henry. And please note, as Danielle noted, please share any questions in the chat, and then we'll have time at the end, hopefully, to share those out and or share out some of that in a further LinkedIn response. So there you go, Henry.
Thank you so much. Henry Massey, Head of Workplace Evolutionaries, Emergent Technology, also co-founder of Elora. Thank you everyone so much for joining today. We're going to be on a fascinating journey talking about the future of work when it comes to metaverse, blockchain, and self-sovereign identity. First, what I want to do though is open it up and ask everyone in the audience, why are you here? What is it that drove you to want to join this conversation? Is it you want to expand your knowledge on metaverse, blockchain, self-sovereign identity? Is your organization or brand trying to enter into the metaverse space? Therefore, you want to learn how to do that, or maybe even what are creators doing in the space? So I'll give it maybe 1 minute to let everyone throw in some notes, and we'll go from there. Since we have those answers, my first topic of discussion is always talking about, well, what is the metaverse? Because I think that is one of the biggest questions of this era is, what is it, and how do I understand it better, and how do I apply it to what it is what we're doing? So I see some people are typing, I don't know anything about metaverse. It sounded interesting. Thank you. Would like to learn more about the metaverse, understand terminology and what it all means. Learn and curiosity. Love it, love it, love it. Impact of the metaverse in the workplace. Thank you, Mira. Okay, let's dive in. So what is the metaverse? And let me go to the next slide. So the first thing I like to do is open this up with the definition of the metaverse. And maybe even inside your own minds, think about what is the definition that you have seen in the headlines and or have read and or even confused about. So think about that for a second. And I'm going to read the definition that I've come up with. And the definition is a massively scaled and interoperable network of real-time rendered 3D virtual worlds that can be experienced synchronously and persistently by an effectively unlimited number of users with an individual sense of presence and with continuity of data such as identity, history, entitlements, objects, communications, and payments. When I first started my journey in the education of metaverse, I found myself very inquisitive and very confused on what metaverse even meant, because in my mind, a lot of people were saying, well, the metaverse is a virtual world. But that didn't make sense to me either, because then I asked myself, well, then what's a virtual world? How is that any different to what we've known it to be for the past decade, 2 decades, right? Which made me go through that rabbit hole. And Matthew Ball, author of The Metaverse and How It Revolutionized Everything, really highlighted that for me and made it very clear of what the metaverse is and what it's not and what we should be expecting in the future. As you can see in the definition here, we have a few words that are underlined, and that is intended for me to be a little more granular on what these things mean, because they're very important when it comes to the definition of metaverse. A lot of people have said, well, the metaverse is just a place for people to just socialize and collaborate. But then how is that any different to what we know virtual worlds to be, that have been around for quite some time, like Second Life, right? So I'm going to go into every single word that is highlighted or underlined here, and we're going to go a little deeper into what we mean by the metaverse. The first word is interoperable network. From a definition standpoint, that means the ability for computer systems or software to exchange and make use of information sent from one another. As it relates to the metaverse, we need interoperability for the metaverse to be the metaverse. And what I mean by that is there are several virtual worlds that exist today, but unfortunately they're siloed. They are their own instance, their own environment, if you will. Neither of these virtual worlds speak with one another. You can't take your single avatar and hop from Decentraland, for example, or Roblox or Sandbox or even Cornerstone and have that same identity, your history, your communications, your payment styles. None of those translate amongst all the 5 different virtual worlds, for example. So in order for the metaverse to truly be the metaverse, and the metaverse isn't here yet, that is something else I wanted to note. You need interoperability, and that is the technology that a lot of these organizations are still working on. Is how do we open up I'm going to say air quotes, the APIs of the metaverse to allow that type of hop between different environments. So again, continuity of identity, history, communication, objects, payment, and your avatar. So however you design it, however you look and feel and how you represent yourself, that one single item is supposed to be able to go across the realm in one single identity. Next is massively scaled. So as we know the internet to be today, there's an infinite number of websites, right? And it's growing daily. So a new organization comes online, you automatically go out and you create a website. That is how you create your trademark, essentially, your stance and saying, I exist in this place. Now, in order for the metaverse to be the metaverse, we need an infinite number of virtual worlds. So a cool stat that I read the other day was saying that in the next 3 to 5 years, every organization in the world will also have a digital presence in a virtual world, which will represent their landing page or their website, which is very fascinating. Now, as we see and explore AI, generative AI that's coming out right now as a big tool, AI is going to help us leap forward into creating these types of environments seamlessly, a lot quicker, a lot easier. Because right now, it's not as easy and intuitive to go create your presence, your existence inside of a virtual world. You need organizations or companies, third parties to help you design that and bring you in. And it's not, again, not that easy. So if we have AI to help us generate these experiences quickly and seamlessly, that's what's going to create this infinite number of virtual worlds inside of the metaverse. Persistence is one of my favorite ones, and I've talked about this in previous webinars, but persistence has to do with the concept of permanent change inside of an environment. Now, I have an example of an individual sitting in front of a window throwing a baseball through it. And the idea here is, well, this baseball is going to go through that window. It's going to make a sound. It's going to break the window. Now, the question that we all are looking for when it comes to the metaverse is this experience just for me? Or is this experience going to be for me plus everyone around me at the time of this incident? And is this going to be a permanent change? So when it comes to this type of thing, what happens is computers are saying, or the computational mathematics behind all of this is saying, is this going to be permanent? Or once Henry walks away from this window, are we going to refresh this environment and that window is going to return to normal, intact? So if you play a game today, for example, and you do something, and anything inside of a game, whether it's like Super Mario Brothers, you jump on a turtle, the turtle goes away, or again, like in a game, you make a change. If you walk away from that environment and then you walk back to it, the change that you just made is always refreshed. It's brand new. It's clean again, right? In the metaverse, that change will be permanent. And that's the whole idea around permanence or persistence, is that if I do something, it's going to be a permanent change, not only for me, but for everyone else that also comes back to also look at that window. So that's the reality of metaverse and what it is that they're trying to do in terms of our experience when it comes to the metaverse. And then synchronous, this has to do with the idea is, are things synchronous or are things live? Like, for example, this conversation, we think that this is a live conversation. You know, I'm speaking, you can speak, we can have a dialogue, a conversation. Now, for the metaverse to be the metaverse, we need a synchronous connection, meaning that to explain technology, right now what's happening is Microsoft Teams is recording my voice, recording my face, recording my presentation, packaging it, and then sending you these package snippets and unpackaging that package and giving it to you fast enough to where you think this is a live conversation. When in reality, right now, this conversation is not live. So for instance, if you have ever been in a conversation or a conference and you notice that all of a sudden the speaker or someone is starting to speak extra fast, it's because there was a disconnect in that discussion, and the technology is packaging it, trying to send it to you fast enough, unpackage it, and make it seem like you haven't missed out on anything yet. So again, for the metaverse to be the metaverse, we need a synchronous connection. So when it comes to metaverse in the workplace, and by the way, I just wrapped up on the definition, and hopefully that made sense on why those words were underlined and what is it that we're looking for. for the metaverse to truly be the metaverse. And so again, a small disclaimer, the metaverse isn't here yet, and that is something that technology is still ramping up and maturing as we know it. Right now, we are in that ebb side of the industry for where we're still creating. We're still waiting for the metaverse to truly be here. We're waiting for technology to get there. And these are things that we're looking for in order for the metaverse to truly be the metaverse. It's not a virtual world, right? We need interoperability, we need persistence, we need synchronous connections in order for the metaverse to be here. And the time frame for the metaverse is looking around 3 to 5 years still at this point. So going into the next point of the conversation is, well, how are we going to use the metaverse in the workplace? We're going to be looking at the use cases in this case. So I've done a lot of collaboration with a lot of the organizations that are out there right now. A lot of these that I'm showing too is in collaboration with ServiceNow, for example. And wanted to highlight these particular topics. When it comes to new hire orientation, virtual office tours, remote virtual office, these all tick and tie together, right? If you look at Accenture, for example, they have brought on the new hire orientation concept beautifully. They onboarded 150,000 employees last year, and the feedback was incredible. People from all over the world were able to join in one location to meet each other before the new hire orientation kicked off and just be together, right? That's the whole point of, I think, joining organizations and is building community. So imagine 150,000 people being able to do that and to really build the culture around that message. Virtual office tours goes right hand in hand with that. Is that, again, Accenture has created a digital twin of their facility. So once you are onboarded, you can go and take a look at the HQ before you even go visit that particular location. Imagine how many times we have gone on site on our first day. We're confused. We didn't know where to go. We're sitting in the lobby hoping someone would pick us up because, quite frankly, we had no way of navigating the building because we didn't know anything about it. But if you had the ability to look at a digital twin and get familiar with the building, then that, to me, in my mind, would create a beautiful experience when I first came to visit the location, which goes, again, to remote virtual office. Now, this is just saying, hey, is this an alternative location for me to be able to work in? Now, these are things that are enabled today, is where people can, from a remote perspective, log into their HQ facility because they're remote employees. They don't have that option. They could be in a different state, different country, and they can also see who is on site and work hand in hand with those individuals. Naturally, this is going to flow into team collaboration and event gatherings. So everything that we're doing inside of the metaverse is trying to enhance communications, to enhance inclusivity, to bring people together, to drive community, to make people, or to allow people to think outside of the box and collaborate, right? So we still need those things. Now, if you think about one of the biggest problems people are having right now is hybrid technology. They're saying, well, there's some people who are on site, there's some people who are remote. The people who are remote and they're zooming in always report that they don't feel included. So instead of having an event like that, they say, okay, let's just go all be in a digital world, for example, and we can all be in the same location. So this is driving inclusivity. When it comes to event gatherings, people like Chris Muller, who might be on this call, Simon Davis, they have built an environment inside of Verbella. And they are having bi-weekly meetings and bringing speakers in, and people from all over the world are able to come in and be able to listen to people and be able to collaborate, innovate. So it's driving community again. So I don't ever have to leave my house. Chris has never left his house, and he's having these beautiful discussions all in the metaverse and allowing these great discussions to take place. Water cooler chats and informal gatherings. There has been a lot of chat and saying, hey, our culture is water cooler chats. You know, if we don't go into the office, how are we going to have culture? But again, this all goes back to the 4 points I just discussed. You can have those organic discussions with people inside of the metaverse and the virtual world. I've experienced it in Verbella every week. I go into the environment, I meet a brand new person, someone that I would have never had access to or would have ever even thought of connecting with. You know, that to me is a water cooler chat. That is a new relationship that I have built. And it's organic and it's beautiful and it's been growing ever since. And I don't have to necessarily cultivate that relationship inside the metaverse. I can take that out on LinkedIn or wherever else I want. Improved education and training sessions, immersive learning. I am incredibly bullish on this one point here. If you've listened to Simon Davis or Chris Muller, Simon interviewed his daughter, who I think is 5 years old, and asked her, what do you think about the future of work or education? And for her, she even said, I love this experience that I'm seeing in like Verbella, right? I want to be able to experience that. But when it comes to immersive learning, if you think about this, and the way that we've been going to schools, we've learned, let's say, biology or any of those things through books that are 2D. And for me, those topics were a little difficult when I was in school. But imagine being able to blow up a heart and be able to walk through that heart and be able to see and understand the anatomy of it. That to me, because I'm visual, would have been life-changing. I would have remembered every single part and component of the heart. So these are things that we're going to be starting to see and already are seeing manifest themselves in the education system. More so even also in the training concept too, people are starting to bring this in the manufacturing side of the business. Like when you're onboarded, for example, employees are automatically given a training session inside of VR to help them see kind of, hey, the facility number one, what is the machinery they're going to be working with, and helping them create processes and procedures around that. The next one is a more connected work experience. This is more focused around like the IT experience. Right now, as I know it, you can call someone, you can ping someone, and they'll virtually connect into your computer. Or if you're on on-site location, you're going to go somewhere in a building or go to the campus next door to a walk-in station. They'll hand over your computer and they'll do their thing. But now they're creating experiences within virtual worlds to where you can do the same thing, but it provides a different experience. They have the ability to connect into your computer. You can talk to someone, another avatar, and feel a little more connected versus someone just taking control of your computer and you just kind of watching or doing whatever you're doing. Exhibition setup for showcasing, enhancing celebrations and DEI events. This is incredibly important. As we see like Pride Month, for example, there are celebrations that need to be had, made public, made global, and these are ways that we can do it inside of the metaverse, pushing DEI. And the last one is employee arcade, just driving relaxation. So if we think about mental health and awareness, meditation, just for the ability for people to connect, that it doesn't necessarily have to be always office-based. The virtual worlds also allow employees to engage each other in a competitive way, to play games together, to relax, to restart in essence, and just do work life a little more flexibly. So those are the use cases that I found to be very relevant in today's discussions as it relates to the metaverse and how we are using virtual worlds to be able to create efficiencies and to create wellness inside of the workplace today. To talk about the future of the metaverse, as I mentioned before, there are 3 things that we need for the metaverse to be the metaverse. It's to be interconnected, decentralized, inclusive, and diverse. So interconnected has to do with the interoperability component, right? I should be able to go to the Maldives. I can go to New York to catch a show. I can go to Amsterdam for a festival. Again, using the same avatar, using the same identity, payment, data, and history, right? I think I hit that one pretty hard in the beginning. Decentralized is allowing users to experience the metaverse from a place of more safety, greater privacy, and less manipulation. The idea behind decentralized is that there's no one entity that owns something, right? So the decentralized concept or component here gives the power back to the users. We are the ones who vote how things change and morph in time. We don't have Meta telling us how we should be doing things or any other companies telling us how we should be experiencing anything. We're the ones in a decentralized concept creating our experience. But the most important one out of all of this is inclusive and diverse. If you look at this is the first time in human history diversity and equality becomes a reality. The metaverse is eliminating this inequality by creating opportunities for everyone. And to wrap up that concept, I love that the bottom portion is a student from India, a lawyer from the US, and a farm worker from Europe can all find a place of equality and inclusivity in the metaverse. So I'm, again, super bullish on inclusive and diversity inside the metaverse. Even if you talk to minority groups, they're all saying the same thing. It's like we can come into the metaverse, paint ourselves however we are, and we can finally coexist, right? So that to me, I think is the most important component of the entire metaverse ecosystem. So I'm going to pause there and That is everything to do with the metaverse. The next topic in hand is talking about blockchain, self-sovereign identity, and using a token system. So we're changing topics, we're moving away from the metaverse and now focusing on other technologies that are going to be integrated and used in the future of work and things that we need to be thinking about going forward. So blockchain. I'm going to provide a very exaggerated simplification of what blockchain is. Now, blockchain can be thought of as a Google Doc that is shared with everyone. A lot of people that I speak to are like, what? I don't understand blockchain. Where does it sit? Where is it housed? How do you run data off of it? And the best way that I could explain exactly what it is that it is a Google Doc that everyone in the entire world has access to. It's something that is decentralized. It's a distributed digital ledger. It's essentially a Google Excel file that where you can see Henry purchased XYZ or Henry stored XYZ information on this following date. And this is who else has access to it. It records transactions across multiple parties in a secure and transparent manner. It changes and shows the additions to the blockchain and visible to everyone, no matter what. And that's the beautiful thing about the blockchain. It's completely transparent. There's no single entity that has control over the entire blockchain, hence the word of decentralized. It's transparent and trustworthy. It's immutable, meaning transactions cannot be easily altered or deleted without the consent of all participants. It is said that it'll take about 1 million years for a hacker to be able to access, manipulate, and change any data inside the blockchain. Hence why it is practically impossible to be a hacker in the blockchain. And this is why it is incredibly secure to be able to manage your information here. It eliminates the need for intermediaries and allows for efficient and secure transactions. Blockchain really revolutionizes the way data is stored, shared, and verified, creating new possibilities for efficiency, security, and trust in various industries. Now, when it comes to use cases, there are 5 that pop out for me, and there's a 6th one that I'll talk about in a second, which kind of shifts over to the idea of self-sovereign identity. But the first one that blockchain is being used for is supply chain management, which is the tracking and the verifying of the movement of goods and materials through the supply chain. Imagine having full transparency in what's happening in the supply chain. That would solve a lot of things. Data management, this securely stores and manages data such as employee records, financial transactions, and contracts. So what this does is it improves the efficiency by reducing the need for manual data and entry. Smart contracts, which is this one, I think in my personal mind, has a very significant effect on lease management and how we can bring that into corporate real estate. So what this does is it executes contracts, which reduces the need for manual processing and increases the speed and accuracy of contract execution. So instead of having intermediary who's actually in the middle trying to negotiate all the lease contracts, you can have smart contracts that kick off automatically and verifiable that will be sitting on the blockchain. Then we have asset tracking, which tracks and verifies the ownership and movement of assets, such as equipment, tools, and inventory. So if we think about like CMMS, for example, the blockchain can go ahead and manage all of these things in a beautiful, transparent manner. And then quality control, which is the tracking and verification of the quality of products or materials, which helps businesses to ensure that they're meeting quality standards. So these are some use cases around blockchain, super high level, without going into super granularity on the security around blockchain. And I know James, who's part of this conversation from Cognizant, is working in a beautiful project to have everything to do with blockchain, and would love to have further conversations with you on how blockchain is being used in the industry. So now moving to self-sovereign identity. Self-sovereign identity has to do with data management, your personal data management. But to back up, to talk a little more about this on a high level, so a person on the internet produces about 147,000 megabytes of data per day. At the beginning of 2020, the number of bytes in the digital universe was 40 times bigger than the number of stars in the observable universe. I mean, it's no wonder why Google, Amazon, Facebook, and so on are just absolutely filthy rich using our data. So Web3 is the era we will own our digital identity, providing access to those we see fit, and we, for a change, will be able to potentially monetize off of our own data. Our data will be stored in something called a digital wallet. It will hold NFTs and tokens containing all that important information, which goes into my next point. Token economics within the workplace, if you think about the era we're living in, everything provides us with a dopamine drip. From the swipe and scroll behavior to the loyalty reward programs, from every brand and shopping center, we get points or discounts really just for interacting or making purchases. If you look at the gaming world, for example, everything is point-based, which buys you lives, skins, perk packages, and so on. As we've evolved, society has pushed heavily for instant gratification or reward. So let's talk about how tokens can be used in the workplace to drive efficiency and also provide incentive. So as I mentioned, since our digital identity and wallets are managed on the blockchain, there are things that we can do inside the workplace that can really push forward the way that we interact and do things to really drive incentivization and rewards. Like the first question here is, what if we could actually streamline the HR process, such as hiring and onboarding? So what I mean by this is that because we all as individuals will have a digital wallet, they can access our digital wallet and view things like our information, our skill sets, our credentials, our work experiences. What this will replace is what we know to be the old school resume that we all maintain and we all submit when we are applying for a brand new job, right? That entire idea will be revolutionized by the accessibility, again, of your digital wallet. We all have it. We all have data. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, we produce an incredible amount of digital data that is already out there. So instead of, again, giving that to large organizations for them to house and farm, we maintain all of those things through the form of tokens and or NFTs, which will be able to be granted and be given permission to other organizations, right? Now, if we look at the cycle of employment, for example, and this is kind of why I'm talking about the token system, because I find a lot of benefit in this particular notion, is that once you're hired and you're brought into an organization, let's go through the onboarding process, for example. You're onboarded into an organization. At that point, you can be gifted a certain number of tokens. Those tokens, what they can be used for is unlocking your development plan, making purchases that could be inside the organization or even outside. So this is financial gain. You can gain inclusive access to in real life or metaverse experiences, meaning if you gain a certain amount of tokens, then that can provide you access maybe to certain locations in a physical realm, or maybe those tokens can provide you access to metaverse experiences within a virtual world like what we're going to show you after this conversation. Exclusive things that are can provide engagement. The whole idea around this is gamifying the workplace. So if you think about everything that we're doing in our life, it is gamified. The other cool thing about a token system is we can use this as access control, both in real life locations and also in the metaverse. So if you think about this part, you can give someone a digital token where they can house that in their digital wallet. When they come to an in real life location, they bring up their phone and they put it next to the door and they get provided access. Very much like what we're already doing with our phones today. When we go to the store, we check out, we have our Visa cards on our phone. We use NFC technology and we pay, right? Same thing we can do with in real life locations. The same thing can be said with metaverse spaces too. It's saying, well, how do we control rooms or experiences within the metaverse? Maybe we don't want everyone to be able to access certain locations. For example, we're creating a Wii experience within the metaverse, and we have to be able to control not only can the global world get into certain locations, but we want to restrict it only to Wii. The tokens will be the ones that control that particular access. But the most important I think in my personal mind around the token economy is, well, how do we incentivize employees, going forward? Because as I mentioned before, I believe our society has really shifted to that dopamine drip effect, right? Everyone wants to be rewarded. A lot of people want instant gratification. And a lot of organizations right now are struggling with the concept of return to work or return to office. And everyone's asking, well, how do I bring people back? I'm not providing my sentiment where I think work should take place, by no means. But if you were to think outside of the box and say, hey, well, foosballs don't work and catering doesn't work, well, how else can we cater to our employees? Well, how about looking at maybe perhaps an employee reward program? Now, what I mean by this is, as I mentioned, when you get onboarded, you get a certain amount of tokens. Those tokens can be used to unravel your development plan. So think about gamifying your journey at work. Typically, we don't really have a clear vision of what our development plan looks like. And sometimes our leaders, our managers create this as they go, and you're rarely introduced to what is next. How do I progress? Or maybe not, just getting an understanding of what the development plan is. But if you use tokens to unlock a development plan, it gives the power back to the employee to be able to grow at their own pace, right? So as they go through the development plan, every milestone they hit, they get a certain bulk of tokens. And they can choose what they do with this. And I'm going to get to that point in a second. The next part is engagement. People can gain or win additional tokens by engaging in certain things. Maybe you're saying, hey, I want people to be able to learn more about each other. Hey, how about you go and contribute to think tanks? If you speak to some employees right now, they say, I feel like I'm restricted to the particular title and the job task that I'm provided. I'm not allowed to think outside my box and provide my opinion in things that I'm curious about. But what if you were to actually provoke that type of thought and saying, go get part of think tanks, go collaborate with your folks, be innovative. And with that, we can give you additional tokens. With that goes to the point of community, right? With engagement, you're driving also community. You're learning about other folks. You're collaborating with folks. You're building community. You're building relationships. But the point that this all wraps into is flexibility. What you're doing with that final purse of all these tokens is you're buying that flexibility. Now, what do I mean by this? As I mentioned, as part of the development plan, you can use your tokens to either progress, right, and seek that promotion that you've been looking for, or you can use those tokens to potentially buy additional PTO time, right? Your standard employee receives 2 to 3 weeks right now. So what if you're able to use your bag of tokens for additional time off? What if you had a hybrid type of organization said you need to come into the office 3 days a week, but the employee is saying, I don't necessarily want to come into the office 3 days a week. You provide them the flexibility to maybe only come in once or twice a week. But what you're doing here is you're meeting each other in the middle of the road. The employee gets met in the middle, the organization is met in the middle. You're providing a new approach to things, saying, okay, we are a 3-day-a-week kind of organization, but we're giving you flexibility to buy your time back. So I find that value, flexibility to be incredibly important when it comes to this concept. So super bullish, again, on tokenomics in the workplace. I talked a lot, and I see that we're running up against the time. Can I get a time check real quick?
We have about 20 more minutes, Henry, so.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up from a cognitive perspective, and I'm going to jump into something more visual. So hopefully I didn't swap your guys' minds with a bunch of information and data. So again, we're going to go from talking about learning and learning what the metaverse is all about. But I want to show you guys what people are actually doing in the metaverse today. And it is quite fascinating. So I want to take this opportunity to bring up my environment. But while I do that, what I want to do is I want to bring up a quick 50-second clip showcasing Cornerstone, which is the island that we are developing on. And so I'm going to bring that up in this screen momentarily here. And I'm going to play that 50-second clip and let you enjoy that for a second.
And we're not hearing the sound.
Yeah, the sound unfortunately has been disabled. I can't get that enabled.
Okay.
Welcome to Cornerstone, everyone. So that was a 50-second clip of the environment that we are building in. And what that is meant to do is give you a holistic overview of the island that we're building on. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is showcasing the actual island. And the building that I'm in right now is the headquarters of Cornerstone and is intended to be a museum that carries NFTs. But for folks that are in here that I think are part of the furniture industry, I also wanted to show you the strengths of things that you can be doing there. When I leave this particular location, what I'm going to be doing is jumping around different plots of land that are inside this island to showcase what curators in the space have developed to be able to fulfill the co-working location concept and also things that are included in the mental health and awareness side of the business. So let me get out of my command prompts here and be able to navigate. So as mentioned, this is the HQ building that was displayed in the video before. This is the first. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. This here again is a museum that is carrying NFTs for a particular artist. This is a 3-story HQ facility that, as mentioned, carries all kinds of different artifacts that are in a 3D format. To note also, my avatar is a robot. I do have the ability to change it to be more human if I'd like, but for purposes of this demo, I thought it'd be fun to kind of showcase a more interesting concept here. As mentioned, for people who are in the furniture industry, and something to think about is there was a Swedish organization who actually just joined this virtual world who is building a factory on this island who will be housing their furniture, and therefore any potential clients who are looking at their catalog of furniture have the ability to look at it in a whole different concept. As you can see here, these are all NFTs that I can see in the 3D format. I have the ability to interact with these assets, pick them up, move them around, but for demo purposes, I am not going to do that. For artists even, this is a place where you can bring your art and showcase what it is that you're doing. Like this artist has showcased a picture of Notion, which is dynamic and does change in time and does move. You have sculptures, artists who have done beautiful sculpture designs in this case. We have museums also who are starting to convert pieces of art and bring it into virtual worlds such as this one to be able to showcase art on a global concept. Because, I mean, if you think about it today, you have to travel to certain locations. You have to be able to access these locations and purchase them, walk in and walk the facility, but that's not very inclusive. But they're starting to realize that, and they're starting to create virtual worlds such as this one to showcase pieces of art for the entire world to be engaged in. So that is one key use case that is going on in this particular location. The next location I'm going to transport to, and talking about that really quickly, is transportation. In this island, I'm able to teleport. I'm able to fly, walk in supersonic speeds, but I'm going to showcase today the ability to teleport. So what I just did there is I'm teleporting to the center of the island of Cornerstone. This is supposed to be the landing page for everyone when they log in. And the idea around this particular location here is to be able to showcase house events like concerts, to be able to hold large events that want to carry, let's say, 500 to 1,000 people plus. If you look at the center of this thing, it looks very machine looking, but at the center of this is a concept called Nozel, which is the energy that keeps this environment alive. And to teleport down below there, go ahead and click number 4 to showcase the internal guts of this location. This auditorium space is 100% customizable. So if you didn't want it to look machinery looking or have the nose that is floating around, you have the ability to turn off these things and customize the space to your look and feel. In the case that you wanted to have a very large summit event and you have a group of people presenting in the center. Now, what I'm going to do is from here on out, I'm going to show you locations or creations of people like you and I who are entering into the metaverse space and creating something that they believe is going to provide value to the world. And the first one that I'm going to show you is a lotus. The creator of this lotus is a yoga professor and also a professional in the health and awareness and mindfulness arena in life. What this individual does is he hosts yoga and meditation inside this location. So I have the ability to quickly show you what that looks like inside. You can see you have yoga mats. You have a nice, serene type of environment. You have water in the background and just more of a peaceful environment where people can come in and practice meditation or yoga. From what I've heard, this individual, he's been working with organizations, no organizations like I'm going to show you in a second, who have built co-working locations that want to come somewhere on their break sessions to practice meditation or yoga. And he does that in this particular location. The next plot of land that I'm going to jump to or teleport to is a location a creator has made that is going to house his organization's co-working location. This individual has developed a peaceful pool-like area. I have the ability to interact with the space, go upstairs. I can also fly in these rooms. But these are empty locations as they are not live. These are beta development still. So as you can see, this individual is going to have his co-working location within this environment. And he's going to bring his entire organization of about 20 to 50 people, I believe, in this location. Next location I'm going to plop into is a more modern take on architecture sitting on stilts. This is a 3-story modular building to where, again, another organization is going to be bringing in their co-working experience in this location. Now, the idea around this island, by the way, is everyone is supposed to be able to coexist. It is a decentralized environment, meaning it sits on the Ethereum blockchain, and anyone in the world has the ability to access this environment. Now, you might be asking, well, can anyone join this particular island? The creators of Cornerstone have a vetting process to make sure that everyone who does join at this time is benefiting each other, right? They want to also be able to make sure that whatever's being built is also following a specific architectural guideline and standards. So therefore, materials are being selected that are flowing with the nature, for example, and have an organic feel in that location. And the last one I'm going to showcase here is another modular or 3-story modular, again, another co-working location that is going to be used for an entire team. And hopefully I don't fall off the side of the cliff here, which I think I am. I'm going to re-zoom into that location, give you a better view of what it is that someone's doing here. So you can see this is a very modern take on what organizations are doing inside of these physical spaces. As I mentioned, this is the first hyper-realistic virtual world that is being developed as we speak. As teleported before, that is the center of the island. So when you do teleport into this island or you log in, that is where everyone starts. Again, you have the ability to fly anywhere or teleport, as I mentioned. And now down below here, which is another exciting thing, I'm not sure if I have mentioned it or vocalized it very much on LinkedIn, but we actually have purchased digital real estate in this island here, and we own 69,000 square feet of digital real estate down below. So everything that I'm looking at down below are things that we own. And when I say we, Alora owns it. This is a sculpture that has been designed for an artist. It is the shape of a tree. It is a 7-story facility that is in its making, really. We are not entirely sure if this facility is going to be used for anything, but this artist wanted to be able to understand kind of what it looks like, and we're showcasing it on our land. With that being said, I want to make a very special announcement, and I need to switch screens really quick to bring up my other deck.
Got a lot of great questions in the chat, Henry, as well.
Awesome. Let me see if I can get. All right. I can't see those questions, so if you want to rattle them off really quickly, then I can answer them however see fit.
Sure. Let me go back to the earlier one. One question is around, like, let's say if somebody was looking to develop the metaverse, their job title associated with, a metaverse developer, or would they be a software engineer, or what, like, is there a any professional titles come to mind when you think of people that work in the space?
So any professional titles that can create these environments?
Yeah.
So right now we're working with architects to be able to create these spaces.
Great. Somebody asked about NFTs, which you've already spoke about in your demonstration. I don't know if Karen is available to shed more light on that. But she had a question about that. And then more knowledge about smart contract and supply chain management. How can we reach to the source of this knowledge to train employees?
How can you reach the source to train about these? Okay. I can reach out to that individual personally, and I can go from there.
Okay, great.
All right, so I'm going to showcase this announcement here. So can you see my screen, Danielle?
Yes.
All right. So it's with great pleasure to reveal our design that is going to be globally accessible and will be Workplace Evolutionary's future home. So that location that I showed you that had that 7-story looking structure, that is going to be the location that will house this design. As mentioned, it is 69,000 square feet, and it's something that is going to evolve in time. So diversity, equity, inclusion, community connection, education, and growth is everything that is a symbol of this creation here. And what we have done is we have built around the idea of the tree of life. The way that we have looked at this is saying our community is the forest, but our bond is the mycelium that holds the forest ground together, right? The idea is that we as a community are growing together in a location like this that is supposed to provide education, supposed to bring inclusivity. It's supposed to bring in access to people that normally you wouldn't typically get access to. So we have built this tower, which is going to sit on a middle plane. I'll show you that in a second, as that main hub that is going to have a lot of different spaces. To talk about the design real quick, it's really built around the idea, again, of Tree of Life. As you can see in the center location here, this is essentially a vase that will be holding a tree that will be dynamically growing in time. And as the community is growing with us, so will the space around it. So inside of that particular facility, there's going to be multiple levels. On the lower level, we're going to have a promenade. We'll have a main lobby with an atrium space. We'll have conference and expo center space, and of course, space for additional expansion. Mid-levels will contain office spaces. We'll have private suites and short-term rental concepts. There'll be breakout areas, space for medium-scale gatherings, networking hubs. In the upper levels, we'll have private suites, speakeasies, an area for view and observation decks, a club lounge, a private collection that will be able to host art, H&M offices, and more expansion. In the subterranean levels, and that's something I'm going to show you in the next slide, it'll be a more intimate type of location. Inside of the facility, we're carrying on that organic feel. We're talking about that tree that's going to be growing dynamically in time. So that'll be this focus here is, again, as our community is growing, as we're growing in as individuals even, this tree, again, is growing that landscape. We're trying to keep this as a peaceful environment that is something that will brings in welcome, right? So keeping the natural tones in the facility, bringing in light and large windows. But as I mentioned, there's a subterranean level that is underneath that entire structure. I mentioned the mycelium, right? So as that tree grows, so will the roots that will be growing underneath this facility, which in essence represents the mycelium and all of us as a community. But what this space will bring us is a more intimate location where artists can display their NFT art, for example. This can be a location where we can have private events that want to have this look and feel. even have events for vendors who want to showcase their technology. If you think about conferences, right? Vendors flying to certain conferences, spending $30,000 on booths. You can host your actual technology on a showcase 24/7 inside of the metaverse. That is something that I find as a huge bonus when it comes to the future. The showcase from a topography type of map, this is the island from a bird's eye view. The location of our land is right in the dead center of that island. Everything that is on the outskirts of this water location is considered to be high profile projects. And we are right there in the dead center of that location. The facilities around in the very back will be something focused more on artists. We have the Swedish factory, the French factory, that will be focused on the right-hand side. So to give you an idea of where it is that we are in the space, that is where we're located. As I mentioned, as we develop and we continue having our interviews with the We group, because that is what we're doing right now. We're interviewing everyone inside of the We and also outside communities to ask them, what is it that you want as part of your experience? What I showcased in the beginning is the main tower, and around that tower, we will grow additional facilities based off the input of our community. So it won't be something that we just design on our own, but it'll be something that our entire community grows with us. So these are concepts that are starting to come up as we grow and talk to our culture or our community on what it is that we're going to surround the 2 additional lots around us. These are other components that also look like trees that might be included. And I believe this is the last slide showcasing another concept of buildings, what it might look like internally. All right, with that, thank you so much. That is the end of my presentation. If you have questions and want to talk about all those things that you did ask in the chat room that I can't see at the moment, by all means, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to keep that conversation going with you.
And do note, everyone, first off, thank you, Henry. Wow, so fun to and learn so much about the concepts and actually walk through the metaverse with you. We will be capturing all of your questions and sharing that out for future conversations. But before you all jump, I just want to quickly wrap things up with Danielle and I. Just as we're wrapping up, I would love for anyone that's left with us today, if you could share ideas of future topics for both the Minnesota and the New York City Hub. We would love to hear from you on what you're interested in learning with and what topics are on top of mind that we can share and find those experts to speak about. So what's next for our hubs? Well, I'll quickly share. The Minnesota Hub is going to be combining with the IFMA Minneapolis and St. Paul chapter in May 3rd. Look for a future event. We're going to be having our own version of the Mosh Pit in Minnesota. David Gray hosts it with Jamal every Friday from sunny California. And we're going to be doing our own version, talking about the hot dish of hybrid, because we're cheesy here in Minnesota. And Danielle?
Yeah, so our New York City chapter is going to be hosting an event the 25th of May. It's going to be a virtual panel discussion on wellness. And all I can say is the title is stressed. So it's a lot. There will be a lot to unpack. There'll be 4 featured subject matter experts from different disciplines that are going to walk us through how to get more information and how to attend to the issue of stress in the workplace. So hope to see you there.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know we're at time and it's later in the day for some folks, so thank you. We'll continue this conversation, and we do have a recording, and we'll probably share that on LinkedIn, and let us know what else questions you have. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.